Why do so many people feel empty even when life looks successful? Why does modern life feel busy but meaningless? Why are we constantly distracted but still unhappy?
Yeah, those are the really heavy, quiet questions that kind of echo in our minds when we finally slow down at the end of the day.
Welcome to Atomic English. Today we are jumping into a really special deep dive.
We really are.
We are going to explore this beautiful and frankly profound book called The Meaning of Your Life by Arthur Brooks. And our mission today is to understand a very modern kind of exhaustion.
Right. Because it is a specific type of exhaustion.
Exactly. We want to look at why so many of us feel completely drained. And not because we lack pleasure or comfort in our lives, but because we are experiencing, well, a collapse of meaning.
Yeah, and we kind of operate under this unspoken assumption in modern society, right? This idea that happiness is just the accumulation of good feelings.
Like, if I just feel good all the time, I'm happy.
Exactly. We tell ourselves that if we can just collect enough pleasant experiences or, buy the right things and avoid pain, we will arrive at this magical state of permanent happiness.
Which just isn't true.
No, not at all. Brooks dismantles that idea entirely. He introduces a completely different blueprint for a fulfilling life. He argues that true happiness is actually an equation.
An equation.
Yeah, it requires three specific elements interacting together, and those are enjoyment, satisfaction, and meaning.
Enjoyment, satisfaction, and meaning. Okay, so enjoyment feels fairly obvious, I think.
Right.
Those are the positive, pleasant experiences we have, like eating a really good meal or, laughing with a friend.
Yeah, exactly.
And then satisfaction is that warm feeling of making progress, putting in effort, and finally achieving a goal.
But meaning is the big one.
Right. Meaning seems like the anchor of the whole equation, because without meaning, the enjoyment just feels hollow, and the satisfaction, it kind of fades almost immediately.
It does. It vanishes. Brooks points out that meaning is the single most important element for surviving hard times.
Maybe you felt this too. That feeling where you have a good job, you have endless entertainment right at your fingertips, you have food in the fridge, but there is just this quiet ache of emptiness in the background.
Yes, that exact feeling.
We have never had so much comfort, and yet we have never felt so disconnected.
And that disconnection leads us directly into what Brooks identifies as the biggest obstacle to happiness today.
Which is what?
It's our highly fragmented attention. We are living in a psychological state he calls the doom loop.
The doom loop. Wow. That sounds incredibly bleak.
It does, yeah.
I imagine it looks like sitting in a dark room staring at terrible news for hours on end. But the sources suggest it's actually woven into our most ordinary everyday routines.
Oh, it is entirely ordinary. The loop mechanism works kind of like this. We experience a tiny moment of emotional discomfort.
Like what?
Like we feel a little bit empty or maybe bored or anxious about a deadline at work.
Okay, right.
And to escape that uncomfortable feeling, we reflexively reach for our phones. We scroll through social media, watch endless short videos, check notifications. We are basically looking for psychological regulation.
We want to numb out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The brain wants a quick hit of dopamine to soothe the anxiety.
Yeah.
And for a few seconds, the bright colors and new information provide this tiny spike of stimulation.
But it doesn't last.
No, that dopamine hit is incredibly shallow and temporary.
It reminds me of drinking salt water when you're deeply thirsty.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Yeah, like you're wandering in a desert, feeling this desperate thirst, and someone hands you a glass of ocean water. You drink it, and for one brief second, the cool liquid feels like relief.
Right, it feels like exactly what you needed.
But almost immediately, the salt actively dehydrates you even more. It pulls water out of your cells and makes the core problem, your biological thirst, so much worse.
Wow.
Digital distraction is the salt water of our emotional lives.
It really is. It creates an active deficit. When you finally put the phone down, that original feeling of emptiness hasn't been resolved at all. In fact, it's been magnified.
Because now you feel guilty on top of it.
Yes, you feel more exhausted. There's that lingering guilt for wasting time, and the brain has crashed from the artificial dopamine high.
So true.
And so many people today are walking around feeling completely mentally exhausted, assuming they're just working too hard.
When they aren't.
Often, they aren't exhausted from hard work at all. Their mental fatigue comes from their attention being constantly fractured into 1,000 little pieces by these devices. Think about that for a moment.
Yeah. Realizing that fatigue isn't always about how much you do, but how scattered your focus has become. I mean, that fundamentally changes how we should approach rest.
It completely shifts the paradigm.
Right. You sit down to read or relax, you check your phone for, just 5 minutes, and suddenly an hour is gone. You feel drained, not rested. So, if we want to stop drinking the salt water, the first practical habit has to be fiercely protecting our attention.
We have to.
It requires limiting screen time, turning off the endless buzz of notifications, and actively stepping into nature or practicing mindfulness to physically ground ourselves in the real world.
Yeah, it's really about regaining sovereignty over your own mind. Because if you cannot control where your attention goes, you cannot build a meaningful life.
Wait, if we are so exhausted by this, what is actually holding our attention hostage?
What do you mean?
Like, when we are staring at our screens, endlessly scrolling, what is capturing us so completely? It feels like we are just distracted by our own ego.
You hit the nail on the head. Brooks introduces a really profound psychological concept here. It's the constant internal battle between the me self and the I self.
The me self and the I self. Okay, break that down for us.
So the me self is that loud, anxious, primitive voice in your head that is obsessed with your own survival and social ranking.
Oh, I know that voice very well.
We all do, right? It constantly worries about personal success, physical appearance, status. It fears embarrassment. And it runs this continuous background script of, well, how are other people judging me?
Right, and social media just feeds that.
Absolutely. Social media algorithms are essentially giant engines designed to activate the me self. They force you to compare your life to others and seek constant quantifiable validation through likes and views.
So I assume the I self operates on a completely different frequency.
Totally different. The I self is focused entirely outward. It originates from a more developed part of the human brain that is capable of aesthetic appreciation and deep connection.
Okay.
The I self looks at the world, at beauty, at other people, and at the present moment. Brooks argues that true meaning only materializes when we shift our consciousness away from the me self and spend more time residing in the I self.
We all know what living in the I self feels like, even if we never had a psychological term for it until now.
Give me an example.
Well, think about a time when you were standing outside, watching a truly beautiful sunset spread across the sky. Or when you were listening to a piece of music that was so moving, you literally felt a physical chill.
Oh, yes.
Or even when you were doing deep creative work and 3 hours vanished in what felt like minutes.
That state of flow.
Exactly. In those moments, you aren't worrying about how your hair looks. You aren't calculating how many likes your last post got. The ego just completely dissolves.
It does.
You become part of the experience, and it feels incredibly peaceful.
Because you are connecting to something much larger than your own internal rumination. In psychological terms, you're actually quieting the brain's default mode network.
And that's the network responsible for all the anxious mind wandering.
Exactly. But here is where I think a lot of people struggle with this concept.
Me included.
Yeah.
Because it feels like gravity is always pulling us the wrong way.
Right.
Society constantly demands that we market ourselves. We're told we have to build a personal brand, we have to network online, we have to project success just to get a job or find a relationship.
It's relentless.
It really is. So how do we fight the immense gravity of the me self when the modern world basically requires it for survival?
You fight it through intentional habits that force self-forgetfulness.
Self-forgetfulness, I like that.
Yeah. Happiness grows naturally when we deliberately build routines that require outward focus. So deep reading is a perfect example.
Reading a book instead of a tweet.
Right. Because reading a challenging book requires you to fully inhabit someone else's thoughts, which quiets your own. Or practicing deep listening.
What does that look like in practice?
It means looking someone in the eye and focusing so intently on their words that your own internal monologue just shuts down.
I was reading through the notes on this deep dive, and there was a story from Brooks that honestly stopped me in my tracks regarding this shift away from the ego.
Oh, the adoption story.
Yes. He writes about the experience of adopting his daughter from China, and he explains that initially, the idea of adoption started almost as an intellectual curiosity for him.
Right, because he's a social scientist.
Exactly. He was doing academic research on the correlation between giving and happiness, and he was just curious about the data. But then the process became profoundly real.
The transition from analyzing a concept intellectually to experiencing it emotionally, that is where meaning is actually forged.
Beautifully said. And he describes how the visceral experience of raising this child, of loving her and caring for her through sleepless nights and daily struggles, It completely rewired his identity.
It was no longer a social experiment.
Not at all. It was pure self-transcendence. He moved entirely beyond his own selfish concerns out of pure, exhausting devotion to another human being.
Wow.
He shifted from being the center of his own universe to being a satellite orbiting someone else's well-being.
And that identity shift is the ultimate bridge to the I self. Because when you serve others, this fascinating psychological mechanism occurs. Your internal narrative changes. You stop viewing yourself as a person overwhelmed by heavy problems, and you begin to view yourself as a person capable of solving problems for others.
That is a massive shift.
It is. Serving others creates a profound sense of agency and competence that simply cannot be generated by just focusing on your own happiness.
It is such a stark contrast to the illusion of connection we are sold today.
That's so true.
We genuinely believe we are connected because we can double tap a photo of someone's vacation on the other side of the world.
Right, but that's not real connection.
No. Real intimacy, real human connection demands sacrifice. It demands that we show up for people when it is highly inconvenient and emotionally taxing.
It takes actual effort.
It does. And the sources mention this research showing that even very young children experience a measurable spike in joy when they give a treat away to someone else, rather than keeping it for themselves. Isn't that interesting?
It really is. It proves that the desire to be of service is a deeply embedded human instinct. We are biologically wired to find meaning in helping the tribe.
But we lose touch with it.
Yeah, we just allow that instinct to be buried under the constant noise of modern digital stimulation.
You see, find meaning in the people around us. But we also have to find meaning in our environment, especially in those quiet moments when no one else is around, right?
Right.
We have to locate meaning in the ordinary, unglamorous routines of daily life.
And that is perhaps the ultimate challenge for the modern mind. We've developed a culture that is defined by behavioral addiction.
Like addicted to our phones.
Not just our phones, but to constant emotional and visual stimulation. Online shopping, fast-paced gaming, the endless, frantic cycle of the 24-hour newsfeed.
It's exhausting just listing them out.
It is. We compulsively seek excitement because we harbor a deep terror that ordinary life is fundamentally boring.
We are terrified of the quiet because the quiet forces us to be alone with our own thoughts.
Exactly. And Brooks references the 19th century philosophy of Ralph Waldo Emerson to address this. Emerson wrote extensively about the vital importance of nonconformity.
Nonconformity, how does that fit in?
Well, today, social media acts as this massive conformity engine. It tells us that success equals popularity, wealth, and continuous external validation.
Right.
Emerson warned that if you outsource your self-worth to the opinions of the crowd, your emotions will always be completely unstable. You are essentially handing the keys to your happiness over to thousands of strangers whose algorithms run on outrage and envy.
But how do we actually decouple from that? I mean, I understand the danger of seeking external validation, but what replaces it? How do you build an internal valuation system that doesn't care about the crowd?
Through the mechanism of discipline.
Discipline?
Yeah. Doing things like studying consistently, exercising, or learning a complex new skill. These actions provide zero instant gratification.
Very true.
They require you to sit in the quiet and endure friction. But neurologically, delayed gratification fortifies the I self.
How so?
Every time you choose a difficult long-term goal over a cheap short-term dopamine thrill, you are proving to your own brain that your values matter more than your impulses.
Oh, wow.
Over time, that friction builds a deep, unshakable sense of self-respect that no algorithm can ever manipulate.
I love that. You know, I was looking at another historical example in the sources that perfectly illustrates how we can build meaning in the darkest, most ordinary, or even painful circumstances.
The composer.
Yes, the story of the French composer Olivier Messiaen. During World War II, he was a prisoner of war, held in a freezing, brutal camp.
Just an unimaginable situation.
Truly, it is difficult to imagine an environment with less hope or more suffering. And yet, while imprisoned there, surrounded by absolute despair, he composed a breathtakingly complex piece of music called the Quartet for the End of Time.
Incredible.
He managed to find a few broken instruments and actually performed the piece for the other prisoners and the guards in the freezing cold. He actively created profound beauty in the middle of absolute darkness.
That story is so powerful because it demonstrates that beauty is not merely a pleasant decoration for when life is comfortable and easy.
No, it's much more than that.
From a psychological standpoint, experiencing or creating beauty restores cognitive order, when the environment is chaotic. It is literally a lifeline that prevents the mind from collapsing into despair.
It totally redefines what beauty actually is.
Yes, it does.
We are taught that beauty is an expensive luxury,
Yeah.
a designer item or an exclusive vacation. But true beauty is ordinary and available if we just train our attention to notice it.
Absolutely.
It is observing the specific way the golden sunlight filters through the green leaves of a tree on your street, or the quiet, sacred peace of holding a warm cup of coffee early in the morning before the rest of the house wakes up.
I love those moments.
Me too.
Yeah.
And cultivating the ability to notice these small details. It isn't an accident. It is an intentional daily habit that anchors the mind in the present.
But, if we acknowledge that meaning and beauty can be forged even in a prisoner of war camp, we really must confront the most difficult aspect of human existence.
Which is?
We have to examine how suffering, pain, and failure function within a meaningful life.
That feels incredibly urgent right now. Because when you look at young people today, there is a paralyzing terror of failure.
Oh, completely paralyzing.
Social media acts as this flawless filter where every success looks completely effortless. People broadcast their victories, their perfect relationships, their dream jobs.
And they hide everything else.
They meticulously hide the years of rejection, the anxiety, and the moments of crying on the bathroom floor. It creates a psychological environment where we feel that if we fail, we are fundamentally broken and worthless.
Right. And to dismantle that fear of failure, we have to look at the 3 psychological pillars that construct meaning itself. Researchers define meaning through 3 specific elements: coherence, purpose, and significance.
Okay, so I get the idea of purpose having a direction or goals that pull you forward, and significance is clearly about feeling that your life matters to others.
Exactly.
But coherence sounds a bit abstract. How is a coherent life different from just having goals?
So, purpose is focused on the future. Coherence is how you make sense of the past.
Oh, interesting.
The human brain is essentially a storytelling machine. It requires a logical, chronological narrative to process events. When you experience trauma, heartbreak, or a massive failure, it shatters that narrative.
It feels like everything is just broken.
Right. The events feel random, chaotic, and senseless. Coherence is the slow, painful work of looking backward and integrating that suffering into your larger life story.
So suffering actually forces us to edit the book of our lives.
Beautifully put, yes. Brooks shares a practice he uses called a journal of failures.
Wait, a journal dedicated entirely to failures?
Yes, but he doesn't write in it to ruminate or feel sorry for himself. He uses it to rationally observe his disappointments.
Okay, that makes sense.
Because when we suppress negative emotions, they manifest as chronic anxiety. By writing down what went wrong and extracting the lesson, he is engaging the prefrontal cortex to process the emotion.
So he's building that coherence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He is literally turning chaotic flashes of disappointment into a coherent chronological story. You begin to realize, oh, I survived that failure, and it developed a resilience I didn't have before.
It reframes everything.
The suffering becomes the exact material that shapes your character. Without it, you wouldn't possess the depth required to truly appreciate the joyful parts of your journey.
The challenges are the thread that weaves the story together. When we step back and look at the entire landscape Brooks is painting here, it becomes so clear that happiness is not a permanent state of euphoria that you just stumble into and keep forever.
Not at all. It's work.
It is an active daily practice. It is the conscious choice to put down the glowing screen and refuse the cheap dopamine.
Right.
It is the effort to step out of the anxious me self and actively serve the people around us.
Yes.
It is the quiet discipline of appreciating the ordinary sunlight on a Tuesday morning and the immense courage to look at our own failures and integrate them into our story.
It requires tuning your mind like an instrument day after day. But the music it eventually produces is a life that isn't just busy and distracted. It is a life that is deeply, profoundly resonant.
We want to leave you with a final thought to explore on your own today. We spend so much energy running away from boredom, filling every empty second with digital noise.
So much noise.
But what if the boredom or even the quiet sadness you're trying to escape today is actually the exact raw material your mind needs to construct your next phase of meaning?
It's a profound thought.
The brain requires periods of understimulation to process complex emotions and generate original thoughts. When your phone steals your boredom, it literally steals your capacity to generate your own meaning.
The empty spaces in your day are not voids to be filled. They're the canvas where your I self can finally speak.
So the next time you feel that familiar, uncomfortable wave of emptiness creeping in, try to just sit with it.
Just for a moment.
Let the quiet happen. Notice the urge to reach for distraction and gently let it pass. Look around you and find one ordinary piece of beauty, or think of one small problem you can solve for someone else today.
Changes everything.
Notice how the emptiness begins to transform into something solid. We hope you can find moments to slow down this week, seek true meaning, and appreciate the beautiful, ordinary reality of your life. Until next time.